The guest's great-great-great-grandfather originally purchased the painting in Cincinnati. The guest's grandmother believed it was a work by George Caleb Bingham, but an appraisal later identified the artist as James Henry Beard. The painting, titled The Illustrious Guest, was created in 1847 and features Henry Clay, a well-known 19th century politician and senator from Kentucky. The scene takes place in a tavern, where onlookers gather around Clay, checking his cane and guest register entry to confirm his identity. Beard cleverly signed his name on the register, just above Clay's. The painting also depicts women and children observing from a distance, as they were not supposed to be in the tavern. While Beard is better known for painting dogs and has a record auction price of $25,000, this piece is an exception. Given its historical significance, the appraiser estimates its auction value between
auction estimate on this of $300,000 to $500,000.
Oh my gosh, really?
The guest is shocked. The guest explains that her husband had owned the piece since they first met, having received it from his uncle. Over time, they stored it away due to space constraints, but unfortunately it suffered damage from water exposure. She expresses concern over whether it still holds any value or if it should simply be discarded. The painting is depicting Shi Wangmu, the leader of the immortals in Chinese mythology, associated with the legendary island of Penglai Shan. The intricate gold decoration on the robe and the style of painting suggests it dates back to the late 17th or early 18th century. Despite water damage causing some lifting of the pigments and background materials, the quality remains exceptional. The piece is believed to have been a high-status gift, likely given to an important official for a birthday celebration. Such a screen would have belonged to someone with great wealth and a large home. Even in its current condition, the estimated value is between.
The value of this has to be in the $30,000 to $50,000 range, as it is now.
The guest is overwhelmed by the appraisal, realizing she had considered discarding something so valuable.
I didn't know whether it should be saved or not. Oh my goodness.
Some heirlooms hold more than sentimental value. They shine with historical significance and financial worth. When a guest brought in 2 Tiffany Studios lamps, left to him by a close friend, he already knew they were special. But he had no idea just how valuable they truly were. One lamp, a floor lamp featuring the swirling leaf or lemon leaf pattern, had traveled from New York in the 1940s to Chicago in the 1950s and 1960s before making its way to Los Angeles and finally Palm Springs. The other, a stunning geometric pattern table lamp with a woodbine motif, was purchased in Los Angeles in the early 1970s. Upon closer inspection, the appraiser confirmed their authenticity. These were genuine Tiffany Studios pieces, likely dating back to 1905. One of the most telling signs, the highly transparent glass, a hallmark of early Tiffany lamps designed to maximize light when electricity was still a novelty. Additionally, the original caps and finials remained intact, a rarity that significantly added to their worth. Then came the jaw-dropping valuation. The floor lamp was estimated at a staggering.
I would recommend putting an insurance value of $85,000.
While the table lamp commanded a value of.
This one I would put an insurance value of $45,000.
The guest was left stunned. What was once a cherished family artifact, used to push children around the living room, turned out to be a rare and highly valuable piece of Native American craftsmanship. The guest's grandfather had purchased the burl bowl in the 1920s at a sale in Nova Scotia, Canada, and family law had always suggested it was of Mi'kmaq origin. However, upon closer examination, it was determined that while it was definitely Native American-made, its exact tribal attribution remained uncertain.
Although everybody is of a like mind that it's Native American-made, probably from the Canadian Maritime area, one of those tribes.
The bowl itself was crafted from elm wood, a tree native to the area. The elongated grain confirmed its material, and the fact that it was made from burl meant that it was perfectly suited for shaping into a durable, functional vessel. Measuring 24 inches long, 16.5 inches wide, and 9 inches high, its unusually large size made it a standout example of its kind. In terms of age, it dated back to the 18th century, making it over 200 years old. While its value a decade ago might have been around $15,000, the increasing demand for authentic Native American artifacts has quadrupled its worth. An auction estimate would be
Between $40,000 and $60,000.
Whoa, okay. I wasn't going to be surprised, but you got me.
The guest presents an extraordinary piece of needlework created by their great-great-great-aunt in 1819, when she was about 15 years old. It is one of the most extravagant and beautiful examples of Philadelphia schoolgirl needlework. This type of work was typically the culmination of years spent in a specialized school for affluent young women, likely the Falwell School. The piece began as an enormous sheet of silk, onto which the schoolmistress or the Falwells would have set the image, likely based on a print. The guest's ancestor then painstakingly completed the elaborate stitchery, using the finest silk and metal threads. The throne of King Solomon is particularly striking, featuring gilt and silver threads adorned with sequins and glass jewels. The background is embroidered with silk chenille threads, while the sky and the faces of the figures were painted by a professional artist. The work required incredibly fine needles, tiny silk threads, and countless infinitesimal stitches. The process was time-consuming and demanded immense patience and discipline, likely taking at least a year to complete. The original frame was removed, as it had been about 6 to 8 inches wider and constructed with dowling and gesso, much of which had already broken away. While the missing frame could have enhanced the piece's value, the original liner remains intact.
Right. That says King Solomon receiving a visit from the Queen of Sheba.
Interestingly, the ancestor Elizabeth had painted over the 1819 date later in life, perhaps out of self-consciousness about her age. In terms of valuation, at auction, the piece could fetch between...
My estimate would be at auction somewhere around $60,000 to $80,000.
Oh my, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
This was passed down through my family for generations. It's just kind of an archaeological dig when you go through the desk, because there's things all the way from the 1800s all the way up to my grandparents in the 60s.
The family history suggests that the desk was brought over with the royals in 1621, but the appraiser clarifies that while the family may have arrived then, the desk itself is American-made, dating to around 1760. The desk is a rare child-sized piece, which makes it especially desirable among collectors. It remains in its original condition, a feature that experts refer to as in the black, meaning it has never been refinished or significantly altered. The original brass fittings, feet, and warm patina further add to its appeal. Though the guest believed it to be English in origin, it was actually made in Massachusetts.
The desk is not English, it's American, and it probably was made for someone among your early ancestors about 1760 or so.
The secondary wood is white pine, a material commonly used in New England furniture of this period. More than just a fine piece of furniture, the desk serves as a time capsule containing an incredible array of historical documents and objects. Inside there are 15 daguerreotypes of early family members, along with land deeds, surveys, and accounts books related to Virginia. The desk also holds gold nuggets collected by prospectors in the family, rare 19th century Texas postage stamps, and a large archive of Civil War-related materials, including approximately 100 Confederate bills and original slave receipts. Among the most remarkable discoveries is a well-preserved War of 1812 handkerchief depicting the Battle of New Orleans, a rare textile relic from that era. There are also medical instruments, including a tooth puller and scales, as well as pocket watches and other personal artifacts. The desk alone is worth between...
Would probably be $25,000 to $35,000 is what it would reach at auction.
But with its extensive historical contents, the entire collection could be valued at...
That this is a $100,000 collection.
The guest presents a collection of memorial rings, some featuring skulls and coffins, with engraved names and death dates. She explains that her fascination began after reading about a coffin ring in a mystery novel.
Generally have the person's name and the date of their death, sometimes the date of their birth and their age.
The memorial jewelry is a customary way for wealthier families in the 18th century to commemorate the deceased, often leaving instructions in wills for gold mourning jewelry to be made. The collection includes various pieces, such as a wedding band with black enamel, a pearl ring with hair under glass, and an 18th century band dated 1750, all likely made in England. 3 particular rings are rare and highly desirable. The first features a coffin-shaped rock crystal covering a tiny skeleton painting, surrounded by enamel designs of a skull, crossbones, and a grave-digging shovel. The second is a silver skull ring with ruby eyes, dating back to the late 17th or early 18th century. The third has a skull under rectangular rock crystal, with a fully enameled skeleton wrapping around the band. The guest has been collecting for 25 years, investing anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s per piece. The appraiser estimates that each skull ring is worth at least
to spend at least $5,000.
And the entire collection is valued at
Is $40,000.
Okay.
The guest is pleased, remarking that careful research has paid off. The guest inherited an emerald-cut diamond ring from their great aunt in late 1997. At the time, the ring was appraised at around $20,000. The guest recalled that the stone's size was over 3 carats, but the appraiser measured it to be just under 4 carats. The diamonds at the 4-carat mark see a significant price jump. The ring was estimated to be from the 1950s and was graded as an eye color with a VS2 clarity, meaning it was still white but slightly leaning towards yellow. Over the past 11 years, the value of such diamonds has risen substantially. The ring is now worth nearly
almost $40,000.
Really?
The guest was visibly shocked and excited by the updated valuation. The guest presents a collection of indigenous artifacts from Alaska, which were acquired by his grandfather between 1908 and 1910. His grandfather, a Broadway scenic designer and world traveler, collected these items for artistic inspiration. The guest, having inherited them after his mother's passing, admits he has stored them in a closet for 45 years without knowing much about them. The artifacts belong to the Northwest Coast indigenous peoples, specifically the Tlingit and Haida tribes. The collection includes a carved wooden bowl, likely Haida, late 19th century, made from cedar with abalone and bone inlays. Originally used for grease or oil, but possibly crafted for trade. Estimated auction value.
At auction, I would be very comfortable estimating that at $8,000 to $12,000.
Also, there is a large feast ladle, late 19th century, potentially Haida or Tlingit, reflecting the large ladles historically used in feasts, with an estimated auction value of.
Again, very comfortably $4,000 to $6,000.
Good heavens.
Okay?
Lastly is a shaman's rattle, the most valuable piece, carved from maple, depicting a shaman riding a raven with a kingfisher transferring a spirit into the shaman's mouth. This artifact, dating to the mid-19th century, shows significant wear from ceremonial use. Its estimated auction value is.
Again, very comfortable at auction, estimating this at $40,000 to $60,000.
You've got to be kidding.
Turning over the ornate vase reveals a small but distinct marking on the bottom, showing it is the work of J. and L. Lobmeyer. The presence of the white enamel monogram confirmed its authenticity, with the J and L initials pointing to a production date between the early 1880s and early 1890s. Among the leading names producing these exotic style pieces were Lobmeyer and Brocal, both of whom created a significant number of works that reflected Persian artistry. The shape of the vase itself followed a traditional Persian form, with its gracefully curved body and elegantly designed handles. The detailing on the handles further reinforced the Persian influence, featuring intricate patterns and a striking use of color. Typically, vases from this period lean toward more monochromatic schemes, making this particular example all the more special. However, what truly set it apart was the elaborate decorative elements. Rather than the usual floral and geometric designs, this vase boasted finely detailed depictions of giraffes and storks. Given its craftsmanship, historical significance, and condition, the estimated retail value is to be between.
Value of conservatively $20,000 to $30,000 on this piece.
Thank you very much.
The guest recounted his visit to an antique shop in Salina, Kansas back in 1970, where he had been searching for contractors' tools and other antique instruments.
Antique tools, and I saw this, caught my eye, and they wanted, I think, $120 for it in 1970, and had to have it.
Removing the lid reveals a small handwritten note inside that read,
"Owned and used by David Smith in Ohio in 1795.
This detail had sparked excitement in the guest, knowing that the piece was potentially that old. Examining the compass more closely, the appraiser was immediately intrigued by its fine workmanship, an indication that it was an early example. However, what truly set it apart was an engraving that the guest had never noticed before. A name is inscribed on the instrument, G. Chandley. Below the name, the word Winchester was also etched into the metal. The name referred to Goldsmith Chandley, a highly regarded craftsman born in 1751. Chandley had trained under his father in Maryland, part of a family known for producing some of the finest Quaker clockmakers of the 18th century. His reputation extended beyond compasses, as he had also produced some of the most exquisite clocks in early America. Based on the craftsmanship and the historical context provided by the note found inside, the compass had likely been made between 1783 and 1795. After consulting with colleagues and referencing past sales, the compass had a retail value of.
This is worth $20,000 to $25,000 retail.
The guest presents a rare 1838 buck from the Texas General Land Office, detailing the original land title records from when Texas was a republic. Printed by the Congress of Texas, the buck documented the original landholders at that time. The guest explains that it has been in the family for generations, possibly acquired by his grandfather through either paternal or maternal lineage, which has ties to the Houston family. The appraiser confirms that such records are extremely rare, dating just 2 years after the Battle of the Alamo. Despite its tattered condition, professional conservation could restore the buck. The guest's mother researched the buck's rarity, determining that only about 12 copies are known to exist, most of which are in public institutions. The appraiser notes that in the 1960s, a similar buck was valued at $2,500, but in today's market, it could be conservatively estimated at
auction estimate of $20,000 to $30,000 on it,
with the potential to sell for significantly more. The guest is left stunned and speechless at the valuation.
and I hope you're happy with that.
I'm just shocked.
The guest explained that her great-grandmother had purchased the statue during a trip to Germany in the early 1930s. Having been born and raised there, her great-grandmother returned in 1931 and bought the piece for 160 marks.
And it's always been in her house, and I've always admired it. When she passed away, it went to my grandmother, and when she died, it went to my mom. Now it's proudly adorning my house.
It had always been a treasured piece, one she had admired for as long as she could remember. Turning the statue slightly, the appraiser examined the signature and identified the artist as Edward Onslow Ford, a British sculptor born in the 1850s. Ford had a relatively short life, passing away in 1901, but had left a lasting mark in the world of sculpture. Though he spent most of his career in Britain, he had studied in both Antwerp and Munich, which influenced his style. What immediately stood out about this particular piece was the striking detail of the fabric, capturing a sense of movement as if the skirt was swirling mid-spin. The craftsmanship was exceptional, the bronze casting likely dating to the 1880s, with a deep, rich brown patina that had been beautifully preserved. Ford had been a highly regarded sculptor in his time, known for creating large public monuments. What made his work even more fascinating was that he had the foresight to offer smaller reductions of his larger works, making them more accessible for household display. Given its quality, historical significance, and rarity, the insurance value of this piece is around.
I would think in the $20,000 range.
The guest was visibly delighted and a bit taken aback by the valuation. The guest brought in 2 prints by Käthe Kollwitz, a German artist known for her deeply emotional works. One print depicted a mother and child, purchased in 1980 for $180, while the other was a self-portrait acquired in 1985 for $725. Kollwitz, a major German expressionist, created prints infused with sorrow, shaped by the tragic losses of her son in World War I, her husband, and her grandson. The mother and child print was an etching from around 1900, but was reprinted posthumously by a collector named von der Beck, who owned Kollwitz's original etching plates. The self-portrait, made around 1920, was an original lifetime impression, printed on Japan paper and signed in pencil by Kollwitz. Collectors value works the artist personally handled, making the self-portrait far more desirable. The later print of the mother and child had a retail value between
$500 and $700.
As it was printed after Kollwitz's death. In contrast, the self-portrait, with its original signature and rare paper, was valued between
A retail value for this would be around $12,000 to $18,000.
The guest was visibly surprised by the appraisal, particularly the high value of the self-portrait.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased.